You clicked this video because something inside you knows the way you speak to yourself matters. Maybe you've been through days where your mind feels like a storm. Doubt whispers louder than truth. You try to stay calm, but the noise keeps rising. The pressure to be better, the regret of what you should have done, the fear of what might happen next. And in the middle of it all, you forget one thing: your inner dialogue is shaping your outer life. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, lived centuries ago, but they faced the same mental storms. They didn't rely on motivation. They built daily rituals, mental habits, simple truths they repeated to themselves, not to feel good, but to stay grounded. In this video, we're not chasing hype or self-help cliches. We're returning to wisdom. You'll learn 9 powerful thoughts, 9 things to tell yourself every day, drawn from Stoic teachings reshaped for modern life. These are not affirmations. They are anchors. They won't ask you to fake a smile. They'll teach you to face life with clarity, with courage, and with calm. And as you listen, if even one of these thoughts makes you breathe a little deeper, if it gives you a moment of peace or presence, then I invite you to subscribe, not out of pressure, but because you're building something rare in this world: a quieter mind, a stronger self, a life led by reason, not reaction. Let's begin. Number 1, I am not my thoughts. You wake up and a thought appears. I'm behind. I'm not good enough. I messed everything up. It's quiet at first, but by the time you're brushing your teeth, that thought is already running the day. The Stoics knew this feeling. They didn't pretend thoughts were always wise. They questioned them. Epictetus wrote, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Let that sink in. It's not the event, not the person, not the outcome. It's what your mind says about it that creates the storm. You aren't born with negative self-talk. It's learned from culture, comparison, criticism. Over time, your thoughts start to sound like facts. But here's the truth. Thoughts are not commands. They're not always true. They're not always kind. They're not always helpful. So what can you do? You pause. Not to suppress the thought, but to create space. Instead of "I am a failure," say "I notice the thought that I'm a failure." It's subtle but powerful, like watching clouds float across the sky. You see them, you don't grab them, you don't become them. You let them pass. That space between a thought and your belief in it is where peace lives. Some days your thoughts will be calm, other days they'll be stormy. But in both, you remain the sky, clear, steady, untouched. Imagine you're standing by a river. Leaves float by. Some are beautiful, some are ugly. But you don't jump in to catch them all. You just watch them and let them drift downstream. That's how to treat your thoughts. This doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you stop letting distorted stories write your script. You start checking the source. You ask, is this thought useful? Is it true? Would a wise friend say this to me? And more importantly, what happens if I stop believing it? You'll notice something. When you stop reacting to every mental story, life gets quieter. Decisions feel clearer. You feel lighter, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer wrestling with every shadow. Stoicism isn't about having no thoughts. It's about realizing you are not ruled by them, that your value isn't measured by passing feelings. Some days a thought will tell you you're not enough. You can nod, smile gently, and say, "That's just a thought," and move forward. This is daily work. You won't master it in a day. But each time you pause, each time you step back and observe, instead of obey, you reclaim power, not through force, but through awareness. Ask yourself, what if I didn't believe everything my mind tells me today? What would open up for me? What would become possible? The Stoics practiced this constantly. They journaled. They examined their thoughts. They trained their minds the way others trained the body. You can too. It doesn't take hours. It takes one breath and a moment of curiosity. So the next time a harsh thought appears, instead of diving in, stand at the edge. Watch it float by. Let it pass. Because you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker, the observer, the awareness behind the words. And in that space, you are free. Number 2, I control my response. Something happens, a rude comment, a sudden change in plans, a mistake, your own or someone else's. Your heart races. You feel heat rise in your chest. You're on the edge of snapping, but then you pause. Because you remember something. You control your response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Read that again slowly. You don't control the traffic, the weather, or what someone says about you. You don't control the algorithm, the economy, or your past. But you do control how you show up right now. You control your attitude, your tone, your next move. This is not easy. It takes discipline, because reacting is fast, it's loud, it feels powerful in the moment, but it often leaves you drained, ashamed, and out of control. Stoicism invites something different. It invites a sacred pause. Imagine a match. Someone strikes it, but there's no fuel nearby. No dry wood, no gasoline. What happens? The fire goes out. That's what your peace is. It's the absence of fuel. It's not weakness, it's restraint. It's choosing not to be lit by everything that touches you. You will be provoked. You will feel anger, frustration, fear. These are natural. The Stoics never denied emotions, but they refused to let emotions command the ship. So what do you do when you're triggered? You stop, you breathe, you ask, what's within my control right now? Not what should I say to win? Not how do I make them feel bad too, but what would my strongest self do? That question is a compass, not for perfection, but for clarity. Let's ground this in real life. Someone insults you. Instead of snapping back, you pause. You realize this moment is about them, not me. Plans fall apart, you pause. You remind yourself, I can't control what happened, but I can control what I do next. You feel anxious about the future. You pause, and you say, I don't know what's coming, but I do know who I want to be when it arrives. This is the work, not glamorous, not loud, but powerful. Think of a mountain. Winds howl around it, storms beat against its sides. But the mountain doesn't scream back. It stands, grounded, unmoved. That's you. That can be you. The Stoics practiced this daily. They visualized adversity. They trained their minds to expect hardship so they could meet it with grace, not panic. Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning, preparing himself for rude people, difficult moments, pain. He didn't wish them away. He trained for them. So next time the moment comes, and it will remember, you are not a slave to your first reaction. You are not your worst impulse. You are not your anger. You are the space between stimulus and response. And in that space is your freedom. Ask yourself, what would change if I stopped reacting and started responding? What kind of leader would you be? What kind of friend? What kind of partner, a parent, person? This doesn't mean being passive. Stoicism isn't weakness. It's strength under control. It's the warrior who chooses when to act, not just how. So today, maybe someone cuts you off. You breathe. You respond with silence. Maybe a loved one criticizes you. You feel the sting. Then you speak calmly, or choose not to speak at all. Maybe you mess up, and instead of spiraling, you say, I'll learn, I'll improve, I'll try again. Every time you do this, every time you pause, you're building something, a foundation, a mind that doesn't shatter with the weather, because storms will come, but you are learning to be the mountain. Number 3, this moment is enough. Your mind is racing again. You're thinking about the meeting tomorrow, the message you forgot to send, that thing you said last week that you wish you could take back. You're here, but your thoughts are somewhere else. you feel tension in your body, like you're trying to outrun something or catch something just out of reach. But pause for a second. Look around you. Feel the air in your lungs. Listen truly. Listen to the stillness beneath the noise. Because this moment, right here, is enough. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." But how often do we do that? How often do we rush through life thinking joy is one more achievement away, peace is one more fix away, love is something we still have to earn? You keep climbing, but the mountain keeps moving. The Stoics weren't obsessed with chasing time. They were obsessed with returning to it, to now, to this. They understood something simple. The only moment you ever have control over is the present one. That's not just poetic, it's survival. Anxiety lives in the future, regret lives in the past, but peace lives only in this breath, this blink, this step. Imagine a candle. It doesn't wait for the future to burn brightly. It lights now, it flickers, glows, and offers warmth in the present. That's what this moment is, a single flame. It won't last forever, but while it's here, you can notice it. You can sit with it, you can breathe it in. You might say, "But I have so much to do." Yes, but worry doesn't finish tasks, presence does. You might say, "But I made mistakes," of course. But rumination doesn't repair the past, attention does. You might say, "But what if things go wrong tomorrow?" And they might, but fear doesn't prevent the future. Preparation rooted in calm does. This isn't about denying your responsibilities, it's about facing them clearly. And clarity comes when you're here, not floating elsewhere. So how do you return? Start with your senses. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice the rise and fall of your breath. Touch something near you, the texture, the temperature. Say to yourself, "This is my life." Not later, not someday, but now. Every time your mind drifts, and it will gently guide it back. Not with judgment, with kindness. You are not failing when you wander. You are practicing when you return. Ask yourself, what beauty exists in this exact second that I'm missing? Maybe it's the quiet hum in the background, the way light falls on the wall, the softness in your breath when you stop trying so hard. This moment may not be perfect, it may not be exciting, but it is alive. And it holds everything you need to take the next step, to say the next word, to choose the next thought. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. Not because the past doesn't matter, not because the future isn't coming, but because your power, your presence, your peace are only accessible in the now. Think of a surfer. They can't ride a wave that hasn't arrived yet. They can't go back to catch the one that's already passed. All they have is the wave beneath them right now. And if they're present, they glide. If they're distracted, they fall. Life is no different. When you're grounded in this moment, you move with more grace. You speak with more honesty. You listen with more love. But when you're lost in what ifs and if onlys, you become a ghost in your own life. You deserve more than that. You deserve to be here, fully, freely, even if it's just for a few breaths at a time. So today, remind yourself this moment is not a stepping stone. It's not a placeholder. It's not a waiting room for something better. This moment is your life, and it is enough. Number 4, obstacles are my path. You had a plan. You pictured how things would go. Smooth, straightforward, easy. And then life had other plans. Something broke, something delayed, something failed. Now you're standing there, frustrated, tired, asking, why is this happening? But what if the Stoics would respond? Why not? Because to them, and now maybe to you, obstacles weren't interruptions. They were the very path forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't just motivation, it's mindset, it's philosophy. It's a daily invitation to transform friction into fuel. You see, most people hit a wall, stop. the Stoic hits a wall and asks, how can I climb it? What if this wall is exactly where I need to grow? Let's be clear, this isn't toxic positivity. We're not pretending hardship feels good. We're not saying just smile and push through. Stoicism is more honest than that. It says this is hard, this hurts, but it's here, and now that it's here, I get to decide what it will mean. Imagine water flowing down a mountain. It hits rocks, twists through roots, gets blocked by fallen branches, but it doesn't stop. It bends, it adapts, it carves new paths. That's you. When life throws a challenge, you don't crumble, you observe, you breathe, you adjust. Your plan changed. Then your growth begins there. You lost something. Then your wisdom starts there. You feel stuck. Then stillness becomes your teacher. The obstacle isn't the end. It's the beginning of a different version of you. Ask yourself, what is this moment trying to teach me? It might be patience, resilience, creativity, courage. And no, it might not be obvious right away. Clarity often comes later looking back. But meaning is something you can choose now. Let's ground this. You didn't get the job. Now you have space to reevaluate, to ask if that path aligned with who you truly are. You're going through a breakup. Now you rediscover your voice, your peace, your needs outside of someone else's shadow. You hit burnout. Now you question what you've been chasing, and why. Pain doesn't have to be profound to be powerful. You just have to meet it with presence. You don't have to say, I love this. You can say, this is mine, and I will meet it fully. Epictetus lost his freedom. He was born a slave, yet he became one of the greatest Stoic minds to walk the earth. Seneca was exiled. Marcus Aurelius ruled during plagues and wars. None of them lived easy lives, but all of them lived examined lives. And that's the Stoic path, not to escape pain, but to alchemize it. To ask, how can this sharpen me? How can this humble me? How can this shape my soul? You may not have chosen the obstacle, but you can choose what it builds inside you. That is radical power. That is real freedom. So next time something blocks your way, don't ask why me, ask what now. Turn inward, steady your breath, plant your feet, say to yourself, this is hard, but I am harder. This is a detour, but I will still arrive. This is pain, but it will not poison me. You're not broken, you're becoming. And every crack lets the light in. Remember, you can resent the wall, or you can climb it. You can freeze at the flood, or you can become the river. Because in the Stoic life, obstacles don't stop you, they sculpt you. This is the way. Number 5, I do not need approval. You share your thoughts, and someone raises an eyebrow. You make a decision, and someone questions it. You show up as yourself, and someone says, you've changed. And suddenly doubt creeps in. You wonder, was I wrong? Do they see something I don't? Should I shrink back? It's exhausting, isn't it? Chasing approval, trying to be liked, trying not to offend, trying to fit in without losing yourself. The Stoics saw this trap clearly. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Read that again. Let it sink in. He didn't say tolerate disrespect. He said, if growth costs you popularity, pay it. Because approval is unpredictable, fickle, conditional. It shifts with trends, with moods, with someone else's insecurities. If you live by praise, you'll die by criticism. And yet, we've all done it. Posted something, then checked the likes. Stayed quiet to avoid judgment. Changed our tone to keep the peace. But Stoicism calls you to something deeper, something steadier, your own inner approval. What if you lived as if your character was the only audience that mattered? What if instead of asking, will they like me, you asked, will I respect myself? Because here's the truth, not everyone will like you, not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. You are not here to be universally accepted. You are here to be aligned, and sometimes alignment looks like standing alone. Not because you're being defiant, but because you're being honest. Imagine a tree in a quiet forest. It grows in silence, no applause, no validation. It just reaches upward every single day. That's you. You grow not for attention, but because it's in your nature to rise. Approval seeking makes your peace conditional. It hands your worth to the crowd, but Stoicism hands it back to you. Seneca wrote, "What you think of yourself is much more important than what others think of you." Yes, take feedback. Yes, be kind. But don't abandon yourself to win affection, because there will always be someone who misunderstands your silence, your confidence, your passion, your boundaries. Let them. Their misunderstanding is not your burden. Your responsibility is to live with integrity, not approval. So what does this look like? Practically, you say what you mean calmly, even when it's not what they want to hear. You pursue your craft, even if no one claps for you yet. You honor your values, even when it costs you invitations or applause. You let your actions be loud and your ego be quiet. Ask yourself, am I living for others' eyes or for my own integrity? Because the moment you trade your truth for approval, you start living someone else's life. And it's not worth it. It never was. There's a deep peace that comes from showing up as you are, not perfectly polished, not endlessly agreeable, but honest, steady, whole. It won't win every crowd, but it will win your own respect. And that's the kind of approval that builds something unshakable inside you. Because someday all the opinions you try to please will fade. And what will remain is whether you honored your voice, whether you lived on your own terms, whether you looked in the mirror and whispered, "I'm proud of how I moved through this world." Let others misunderstand you. Let them judge your silence. Let them write their stories. You write your own. You do not need permission to grow. You do not need validation to be valuable. You do not need applause to keep walking your path. Let go of needing approval and feel the weight fall off. Number 6, I can begin again now. You made a mistake. You didn't follow through. You let yourself down again. Maybe it's a promise you broke, a habit you slipped from, a version of yourself you thought you'd outgrown, and now you carry it like a stone in your chest. Regret, shame, self-blame that loops over and over again. But what if I told you, you could begin again now, right here, right where you are, not next week, not when it's perfect, not after some big transformation, just now. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." You don't need a fresh year. You don't need a grand gesture. You don't need to punish yourself before you're allowed to try again. You just need this breath, this moment, this quiet decision. The Stoics never asked for perfection. They asked for presence, for honesty, for discipline born from self-respect, not self-hate. When you stumble, and you will, the Stoic question is not, "Why did I fall?" It's, "How quickly can I get back up?" Imagine a sunrise. It doesn't check whether you deserve it. It doesn't ask what you did yesterday. It just returns, warm, bright, quiet, offering another chance. That's what this moment is, a sunrise inside your day. And yes, your mind will try to stop you. It'll say, "You failed too many times. You can't change. You always do this." But that voice isn't truth. It's habit. And like all habits, it can be broken, not by arguing with it, but by doing the opposite. When it says, "You're too far gone," you begin again anyway. When it says, "You should give up," you take one small, quiet step forward. Because that's how change happens. Not in loud declarations, but in soft redirections. In the decision to stop spiraling and start stepping. Ask yourself, what would change if I allowed myself to start fresh? Today, maybe you'd open that book again. Maybe you'd reach out to that friend. Maybe you'd finally breathe without guilt. The Stoics practiced this reset daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal not to impress, but to remind himself, "I am human. I forget, so I return." That's the Stoic rhythm. Fall and rise. Drift and return. Break and begin again. Not once, Not perfectly, but over and over and over. So what does beginning again look like? It looks like getting out of bed. After a week of burnout, it looks like putting your phone down and reconnecting with your breath. It looks like being kind to yourself, even after saying the wrong thing. It looks like showing up awkward, uncertain, but present, and it doesn't have to be dramatic. In fact, the quieter the restart, the stronger it often becomes. Because when you start without needing approval, without a perfect plan, without punishing yourself first, you begin from clarity, from strength, from peace. Imagine standing on a trail. You took a wrong turn, maybe several, but all you have to do is turn around. You don't erase the journey, you redirect it. That's how Stoicism sees life, as something lived forward, not judged backward. You are not your mistakes, you are not your delay, you are not your past habits, you are what you choose to do now. So pause, place your hand over your chest, feel that rhythm, that steady pulse. That's life, inviting you again, to begin, to return, to breathe, to move forward gently, powerfully now. Let this moment be a doorway, not to perfection, but to presence, to practice, to becoming. Because no matter how long it's been, no matter how far you've drifted, you can begin again. Now, number 7, what's up to me is enough. You're trying to do it all, be everything, fix everything, control everything. You plan, you worry, you hustle, but still things slip, still people misunderstand, still outcomes don't match the effort. And deep down, you feel this constant pressure. If only I worked harder, if only I knew sooner, if only I could just control it all. But you can't, and that's not failure, it's freedom. Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. The Stoics understood a simple truth. Life is not fully up to you. Only your effort is. Only your values are. Only your choices, your focus, your response. Everything else, the results, the reactions, the random wins of life, they're not yours to hold. This isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of what was never yours in the first place. Think about a sailor. He doesn't control the wind. He doesn't command the tide, but he adjusts his sails. He studies the sky. He holds the wheel steady, and that is enough. So how do you live like this? In a world that says more, that tells you to strive, to chase, to grip everything tight. You slow down. You ask, what's actually up to me today? Your attitude? Yes. Your presence? Yes. Your words, your effort, your principles? Yes. The opinions of others? No. The past? No. The outcome? No. And yet, that smaller circle of control. It's where all your peace lives, because when you focus there, on the controllable, you stop wasting your energy on things that only drain you. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to grow. You stop obsessing over whether they like you, or how the numbers look, or whether the universe is cooperating. Instead, you return to what's yours. Your practice, your posture, your choices, and it grounds you, centers you, saves you. Ask yourself, what can I actually influence today, and what can I release? This question is a filter, a purifier. It turns chaos into clarity. It's not apathy, it's focus. You care deeply, but you stop trying to carry what was never in your hands. Let's take this further. You send the email, but don't control the reply. You say the truth, but don't control how it's received. You do the work, but don't control whether it goes viral or gets ignored. You show up, you give fully, and then you release. That release is power. It turns anxiety into presence. It turns control into calm. Because now you're not chasing everything. You're tending to your part. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have control over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Notice the word strength, not just peace, not just balance, but strength, the kind that comes from within. The Stoic doesn't fold when things don't go to plan. They don't spiral when someone disappoints them. They remind themselves, this is not up to me, but how I respond always is. This mindset isn't built in a day, it's practiced, like training a muscle, one thought at a time, one moment at a time. So when the day goes sideways, you ask what's mine to carry and what's not. You place down gently when your effort isn't recognized. You remind yourself virtue is its own reward. When someone misunderstands you, you choose to stay rooted in truth, not in their version of you, because what's up to you is enough. Not because it's small, but because it's everything that matters. And when you live like this, you become lighter, you become more still. You become someone who can walk through storms with peace in their chest. So breathe. Ask again, what's up to me? And give your best to just that. Then let go, not in defeat, but in discipline. This is the Stoic way. Number 8, character is my compass. In a world chasing status, chasing attention, chasing validation, it's easy to forget something simple. Who you are matters more than what you have. But the world rarely tells you that. It tells you to look impressive, to win, to accumulate, to be seen. Yet deep down, you know, none of it means anything if you can't look yourself in the mirror. That's where the Stoics drew their line, not in fame or fortune, but in character. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He didn't say wait for permission. He didn't say wait until you feel ready. He said be one. Now. Because character isn't about how others describe you. It's about how you act when no one is watching, when it's inconvenient, when it's tempting to compromise, when the reward seems distant or invisible. Character is quiet, but it echoes through the small choices, through the daily rituals, through the way you speak to others and to yourself. Imagine a compass in your hand. It doesn't yell, it doesn't rush, it simply points. North, steady, true. That's what character does. It keeps you oriented when emotions flare, when temptations rise, when the world around you feels lost in noise. You ask, what kind of person do I want to be? Not what will people say about me? Not what can I get away with? But what would my highest self choose right now? And then you act from that. Not for a medal, not for applause, but because you refuse to betray your own soul. Ask yourself, what would my highest self choose when no one's watching? Because that's when it counts. That's when you're not performing. That's when you're building who you are. This doesn't mean perfection. The Stoics never claimed that. They stumbled too. They doubted too, but they returned again and again to virtue, to wisdom, to courage, to justice, to self-discipline. These weren't just words. They were practices, anchors, guides. Seneca once wrote, "You should live in such a way that there is nothing which you could not tell your enemy." That's radical integrity. That's transparency. That's a life without secrets, because you have nothing to hide, not even from those who'd oppose you. It's hard, yes. You will be tempted to cut corners, to take the easy route, to say what sounds good instead of what is true. But the Stoic holds the compass and says, I know who I want to be, and I won't lose myself even if the path is harder. Let's bring this into your life now. When someone offends you, do you lash out or respond with restraint? When you make a mistake, do you cover it up or take responsibility? When you could gain at someone else's expense, do you do it or do you walk away? These are not small moments, they are defining ones, because reputation can be taken, but character, that's yours, and only you can build it or betray it. And yes, sometimes doing the right thing will feel lonely. Sometimes it will cost you something, time, comfort, praise. But what you gain is worth far more. Self-respect, inner stillness, a life you don't have to run from. Imagine your future self not richer, not more followed, but wiser, stronger, clearer. What would they thank you for today? For holding the line, for speaking the truth, for walking away from easy applause, to keep your integrity intact. That's the Stoic path, not loud, not glamorous, but solid. Every action, every word, every silent decision is shaping your compass. So hold it tight. Let character be your guide, not fear, not greed, not popularity, but who you are when the lights go off. Because in the end, it's not about what they say about you. It's about what you say to yourself when the world is quiet and it's just you. And if you can say, I stood for something, I walked with virtue, I did not betray myself, then you've lived well. Number 9, speak to yourself as you'd speak to someone you love. You've come this far not to become someone else, but to return to who you truly are, a person of clarity, of calm strength, of steady virtue. And if there's one truth that threads through everything we've explored, it's this: the way you speak to yourself shapes your entire life. Every day you're telling yourself something. Sometimes it's judgment, sometimes it's pressure, sometimes it's silence. But now you've seen another way. You've heard what the Stoics told themselves. What you can now begin to tell yourself, not to sound wise, not to impress anyone, but to remind your soul that you are not your worst day, that you are more than your doubts, that peace is always one breath away. Because if you don't guide your mind, the world will do it for you, and it will pull you in every direction except inward. So, come back. Come back to what's real, to what you control, to what you believe. Speak to yourself as you'd speak to someone you love, with gentleness, with truth, with patience, because your mind is listening, your body is responding, your life is unfolding one inner conversation at a time. If today's reflections helped steady something inside you, if you felt even a flicker of strength return, I invite you to subscribe, not for me, for you, to keep this practice close, to keep building a mind you can live with and live from. This journey never ends, but you are already on the path. Walk it with courage. Walk it with compassion. Walk it with character.